The Girl of Ink and Stars, Chapter 6. I looked up at the ceiling. Something was different, and I'm not sure whether it was good different or bad. Sunrise had bled into the room, turning the mud walls yellow. The air felt close and lay over my body like a hot, sticky sheet. The silence was too complete, and there was a strange smell like Dar's burnt porridge, but more bitter. Pep was sitting in the far corner of my room. He flinched when I got up to stroke him. His fur was up, his tail bushy, like he'd been in a fight. "Pep," I murmured soothingly, but he hissed and slinked under Gabo's bed. Still in my nightclothes, I left the room. Dar was sitting at the table, rubbing his eyes. He looked exhausted. "Dar?" My voice was hoarse with sleep. "There's something wrong with Pep. He seems frightened or grumpy with me." "Miss La too," said Dar, jerking his head towards the kitchen. I could hear her flapping her wings against the sides of her coop. "She's always grumpy." "No," Dar looked haunted. "Something is scaring them." I looked into the kitchen. There were feathers bunched by the back door and scratch marks at the bottom, like Pep or Miss La or both of them had been trying to claw their way out of the house. My stomach turned. "What happened, Dar?" Someone coughed from the garden, making me jump. "It's only Masha," said Dar soothingly. "She's come over to tell me." "Tell you what?" He shook his head slowly. "Something bad happened last night, Issa." The back door opened, and Masha came in and sat down heavily. She did not look at me. I don't understand it," continued Dar, "but I think Pablo might have been mixed up. He's all right," he added hurriedly, "but him and Goraz and some of the others, they did a very stupid thing," Masha finished for him. I dropped down on the bench opposite them. "What?" "They should have let the governor go," said Masha dazedly. "Why does revenge always win over common sense?" "Hush, Masha," said Dar. My heart began to thud. It was my fault. I had told Pablo that Lupe had said that they were going. What did they do? "I went to see myself," said Masha, her voice almost a monotone. "It's a bad sign, you mark my words. Something else must follow. The last time I saw anything like that was when the songbirds—" "Please, Masha," said Dar, "enough." "That's what it is, though, an omen, because Pablo said the animals were nothing to do with them, just the ship." "The animals? The ship?" Before my brain could catch up with my body, I slipped on my sandals and unlatched the door with trembling fingers. "Isabella, no!" Dar was struggling to stand up, his bad leg buckling beneath him as he grasped for his stick. I didn't wait for him. Ahead, smoke was laddering from the harbour. I began to run. People were crowding near the water's edge, and that same sharp smell filled the air, mingling with the smoke, catching my throat. Slowly, the smouldering water resolved itself into something else. The charred remains of the governor's ship, the hull blackened, the sails ash. Pablo's words floating back to me on the acrid smoke. The governor, he's going to take that ship and leave us in this mess. We have to teach him a lesson. Ravens were circling like a cloud of flies. Breath ragged, I reached the first of the villagers and began to push through to the front, ducking under arms and around legs, though I had dreamt for years of the day I would stand in the sea. I didn't stop to enjoy it. As the first waves began to soak my nightdress, I looked down. A tide of dead animals stretched before me, filling the harbour. Cattle, horses, chickens and goats, all stamped with the governor's brand. His animals drowned. The ravens had already started swooping. Had Pablo and his friends done this too? I could not believe they had. As my knees buckled, strong, rough hands cupped under my armpits and began dragging me back through the throng. Then came other sounds. Low, loud voices, shouts, screams. People were struggling with the governor's men, their blue uniforms bright against the grey and brown clothes of the villagers. I tried to shrug off the hands that were still pulling me away, but their grip was firm. It was Pablo again. His face somehow aged. He picked me up and ran. Others were running too. I craned my neck around Pablo's shoulder and saw the whole horrible scene laid out as if time had stopped. The bay, full of drowned animals, blood on the sand as the governor's men got out their whips and dragged people into caged prison carts. I shut my eyes, wished I could unsee it all, but the red-black shift of the waves burnt behind my eyelids. Then Dar was speaking close in my ear. A door was being opened and his hand was stroking my head as I was carried past the whisper of maps and placed on my unmade bed. Damn leg, I couldn't keep up with her. I should go. They'll be coming for me. Was it you? The ships? The ship, yes. But the animals? All we did was let them loose. We didn't chase them into the bay. I believe you. I had to cage Miss La and put Pep in the study. They kept trying to get out. I need to leave. I heard Pablo striding to the door, but before he opened it, there was a heavy knock. I sat up. Who's there? I could hear the nerves in Dar's voice. There was no answer, only another loud knock. Run! Dar hissed. I heard Pablo stumble against the bench as he bolted for the back door just as the front door was kicked open. A man in governor's blues strode inside, tall, with a scarred face and thick eyebrows pulled low over icy blue eyes. He was drawing back his arm, his whip rippling behind him, but I shouted and Pablo turned, ducking just as the whip came down with a crack on the table. Pablo launched himself at the guard, barrelling him to the floor and ripping the whip from the man's grasp, throwing it across the room. Pablo had just raised his arm when Dar held his fist. Go! Pablo hesitated for a moment, then ran for the front door, which was hanging off its hinges, only to stop dead and back slowly into the house. Masha appeared, a lump swelling on her wrinkled forehead. Another man in blue was holding her arms behind her back. Pablo seemed to shrink. The first guard was on his feet now, spitting blood onto the floor. Pablo offered his wrists to the manacles. The guard unlooped from his belt and took the slap that followed with only a grimace. Masha was released and instantly began pleading. Please, he's only a boy. Silence! Masha bit her hand, shaking her head. The guard was holding out another pair of manacles. She hasn't done anything, started Pablo. We have our orders. The third guard was wrenching Dar's hands behind his back. He wasn't there either, I ran forward. He was home with me. I can't leave my daughter alone, said Dar, struggling, but no one was listening. Please, I sobbed, don't take him. He didn't do anything. Please, don't. The man drew back his arm and Dar shouted, Isabella, no! I backed away as they were pushed roughly out of the door. The two men holding Pablo were eyeing him warily, but I knew he would not try to escape, not with his mother threatened. My body felt numb, my tongue latched. I could not let them take Dar, but I could not see how to stop them. They were bundled into the prison cart, Dar wincing as he climbed the steps. I ran back into the house, scanning the room for his stick. It was propped against the wall, and I grabbed it, shoving it through the bars and into Dar's hands. But the first guard, the one with eyes like ice and the whip, had seen. He wrenched it from Dar's hands and broke it squarely across his knee. The stick splintered and dropped in pieces to the ground. The cart set off fast down the hill as I knelt in the dust, gathering the fragments together. I did not know what to do with myself. Our house filled with the smell of the governor's burning ship as I sat on my bed with the broken stick and cried. I cried so hard, all my body was sore and my eyes puffed. I felt completely empty. I sat there until I heard Pep mewing mournfully from Da's study. The cat was back to normal, rubbing himself against my calves. Miss La seemed to have calmed down too. She pecked my hands when I opened the coop, and I fed them both, then went into the garden, so I did not have to listen to the silence of the house. Not even the maps were whispering. Smoke still hung in the air, and I imagined the ship, the sails and mast fallen like clipped wings. That was what the governor was so angry about, why all those people had been arrested at the harbour, why they'd taken Pablo and Masha and Da. A dead girl was less important to him than his boat. Pep came outside too, and I watched him chase flies until my stomach started to rumble. I picked an orange and went inside. Halfway to Da's study, I saw something fluttering by the front door, slid between a crack in the broken wood. A note, short, and obviously written in haste. The ink was smudged, and the paper had been folded before it had dried, leaving a ghostly reflection above the sentences. The sight of Lupe's careful handwriting made something swell in my throat. Issa, I hope you find this. I'm going to show you not all Adoris are cowards. I'll show you I'm not rotten. I'm going across the forest to find who killed Kata. Maybe when I get back, we can be friends again. Love, Lupe. Kiss, kiss, kiss. Kiss, kiss, kiss. P.S. Check under the pot. It's yours for you to look after. I looked left and right, but there was no sign of her. No, that wasn't quite true. I peered at the dust. There were hoof prints leading up towards the forest. So not all of the governor's animals had ended up in the bay. She had a horse. A faint ringing started in my ears, swelling around the other noises, the far-off murmur of the sea, the rustle of ravens on the rooftop above, my own jagged breathing. How far had she got? I'd been in the garden for hours, the whole afternoon, gulping by. My hands began to shake as I opened the door and lifted the pot, pulling out a thick chain. Lupe's locket. Now a roaring filled my ears. I'll show you that I'm not rotten. I'd done this, and now I had to fix it.